Whoa, it is like pouring. Okay, Gil is going to tell me it's time. Or we're live. Okay, good evening, everyone. And today is Wednesday, July 7th. Welcome to the Planning, Economic Development, Housing Committee. If you're joining us live, you are probably viewing us through a wonderful Hartford Public Access television station. You can view us on channel 96 on Comcast and channel 6032 on Frontier. And just in case if you have to run and make dinner, you can always come back and watch the committee meeting on Facebook at HPA-TV. So welcome to July's Planning, Economic Development and Housing Committee. We have with us tonight for the committee members, myself, Shirley Surgeon, as chair. We have our council president, Molly Rosado, council member Marilyn Rossetti, Councilman Jimmy Sanchez, Councilman John Gale. I believe those are the only council members in the committee who has joined us. And we also have a wonderful council member who always joins our committee meeting just to stay informed, and that's Councilman Nick LeBron. So welcome to all the council people, committee members who are here. So tonight we have two items on the agenda. The first item we're going to be discussing is the resolution from Mayor Bronin authorizing the transfer of 11 city-owned properties to the Hartford Land Bank as part of their Lot Next Door program. That was an item 5 on the May 24th agenda, and there was a public hearing on June 21st, 2021. I do offer to also acknowledge our attorney, Richard Velasco is here. And we also have with us Development Service Director, Mr. Charles Matthews. We have Aaron Howard from Development Service Department. And I believe those are we also have, I'm looking through who's present. We also have the director of the Land Bank, Ms. Carrie Shea. And I also believe I remember seeing Mr. Colon from the who's the president of the Land Bank's board. If I'm missing anyone, please let me know. But so, okay.
Lindsay's here. Thank you. Hartford Jet.
I'm sorry?
That's Lindsay with Hartford Jet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. So again, the first item on the agenda, and that's why we're being joined by the Land Bank, both the board chair and Ms. Carrie Shea. Ms. Shea, are you here? Hello?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thank you. Before we get started, I know you are going to be leaving, and we want to thank you for stepping in when the Hartford Land Bank needed an interim director. So you are the interim director, so thank you. The floor is yours if you want to talk to us on this item that's on our council committee agenda.
Certainly, and I'd actually like to turn it over to Melvin Colon if he wants to say something. And I believe that Aaron Howard was going to do an introduction. I don't see her.
Yeah, I believe Erin is here, and please.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, please me for my mistake. Let me have the city administration speak before you guys do. Mr. Matthews, I do apologize, sir, for not knowing my protocol.
No problem. We're very lenient with council members, as you know.
Thank you so very much, sir. So the floor is yours, sir, along with your staff.
All right. Aaron's going to take the lead on opening. Aaron?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Councilwoman Surgeon and council members. As you know, Aaron Howard, Economic Development Director. Just to point out, I do actually have two other ED staff on this call, William Diaz and Peter Bryanton. They're both project managers within the Economic Development team, and they have helped on both agenda items, so I asked them to participate tonight. That said, this particular agenda item, it would be for the transfer of another 11 their vacant lots to the Hartford Land Bank as a second pilot program. As you know, last year we had our first pilot program. We had transferred 7 properties over to the land bank. That transfer actually, just for the record, did not actually occur until January of 2021 this year. So they've only had those properties in their possession for about 6 months. That said, we've been working with the land bank over the past year, and I've identified 11 properties that are vacant surplus properties within our city-owned inventory list. These particular 11 properties offer an opportunity to potentially sell these properties to adjacent owners next door. And so we wanted to go to another second pilot program and to work with the land bank in doing so. I will let part of this is to also give council an opportunity to hear from the land bank specifically on their performance for the past 6 months with the first set of 7 properties. And we're really looking forward to moving along these next 11 properties to the land bank to encourage more dispositions and more addressing blighted vacant properties throughout the city. So with that, I am going to actually transfer this over to Carrie. We have been working in collaboration with the land bank. We're going to give you a presentation primarily led by the land bank, and then we'll provide council with our next steps and what our thoughts are with the land bank going forward. So with that, I will hand that over to Ms. Carrie Shea and Melvin Cologne from the Hartford Land Bank.
Before Ms. Shea, before you start, just have a question for you, Aaron. How did you decide to choose these 11 properties? What was the city's rational thinking?
So what we did is we went through all the, so couple things. So city-owned property, we own a bunch of different property across the city. So within DDS, for the Economic Development Division, we tend to hold on to properties that are not actively used by the city of Hartford as an entity. So I don't manage City Hall, for example, or any of our city parks. But if we have property that we've taken over time, whether it's for a tax deed sale, or it's an old city property that we lease out for different reasons and that such, DDS manages those particular properties. So what we did is we went through that inventory of properties, about 200 or so, believe it or not. And we went through that list and identified which ones were part of a development plan. Sorry, there's some feedback. Went through that list, identified which properties were tied up in a development deal. So to give you a concept of what we have, like Dono is like multiple parcels. There's like 25 parcels or something like that in all of the phases of Dono, because we've never actually combined them. So that number sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, when you start to get rid of all of our city-driven projects and properties that are tied up in leases or encumbrances and that sort of thing, we actually had a smaller inventory of properties. So I think we ended up having about 25 plus properties that are left within our inventory that we don't have any plans for. And so we went through that list, identified the first round of city-owned property. Last year, we identified within that list the 7 properties that kind of had a different mix to kind of learn a little bit about how this process works, to learn best practices of the land bank. And then this last round for the 11, we identified vacant land. In the last 2 tax deed sales, we found a lot of vacant land that just don't have, they're not tied to any redevelopment area. They're not really tied to any development project. And so we've identified those as opportunities to switch over to the land bank. We also looked at them in such a way that they don't have any issues with the properties, in the sense that we don't have any legal issues, for example, anybody trespassing on the property or any issues like that. We really looked at this list to see which ones were in our inventory that we couldn't move, that there was an opportunity to move with the land bank, which is how we narrowed that list down.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much, Ms. Howard.
No problem.
Ms. Shea?
So thank you very much for allowing us to come before you. I do have I would like to share my screen. Is that possible?
Sure.
I have a PowerPoint presentation.
I think I just hit share screen, right? I think I do. I haven't done this part before in a long time. Why don't you put up and let me make sure we are seeing you.
Okay, let me see. I'm gonna share screen and here we go. Did that work for folks?
Yeah,
Okay.
it says.
Oh, very good. Okay. So I'm just going to walk folks really quickly through this, these slides. I understand that people were sort of wondering what we've been up to since we haven't been in front of the city council since, I guess, last September, I'm told. So I put this together just to give you an idea of what we've been up to. So in January, we received 7 properties transferred from the city to the land bank. All of these properties had structures on them. I joined in February, and the first thing I did was get out there with our construction manager and inspect the properties and start speaking with the board about setting a disposition strategy to move these properties back into commerce. In March, we went in, had actually a handful of the properties appraised to get an idea of what the market values were. And we began cleaning them out. They were all filled with debris. These were all properties that had been vacant for a long time, and we prepped them for sale. And down at the bottom here, you can just see, basically what we do is we acquire properties, we stabilize them and prepare them to be marketed, and then we sell them. So the properties we got are these 7 properties. 3 of them were, actually 5 of them, is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them were 2 to 3 family properties. One of them, 196 Homestead, is a 6-unit building. And 78 Martin, this one up here in the right-hand corner, is a really sweet little single-family house. So in April, we took 2 of our properties, 61 Charlotte Street, a 2-family home that had been vacant for many, many years, and 103 Earl, a 3-family home that had also been vacant for a long time. And we began a 30-day sale process where we had 3 open houses so people could come by and look at them. And at the end of those 30 days, we accepted applications. Unfortunately, 59 Magnolia, beautiful block, beautiful street, was not salvageable, and it was in a historic district. So we began what turned out to be a pretty long process of getting the permissions and appropriate paperwork and releases to do that demolition. And coincidentally, the demolition occurred today. So it took from April until July to do it, but it's done. We began cleaning and shoring 196 Homestead. There were certain floors that looked like they might collapse, and we didn't want anyone to get hurt looking at it. And then we started planning and design for the rehabilitation of 78 Martin Street, which the land bank is taking on itself. In May, we selected purchasers for the Charlotte and Earl Street properties. We began marketing 2 more properties, one on Edgewood and one on Garden Street. Both of them 3-family, or actually Edgewood is a 2-family home. Garden is a 3-family home, very bad condition, really, really tough properties, but surprisingly, there was a lot of interest in both of them. We did planning and design work for 78 Martin Street, and we completed the stabilization of 196 so we could begin showing it to potential buyers. In June, Charlotte, Earl, Garden, and Edgewood properties all went into contract, and we hope to get a couple of them closed before the end of next week when I leave. We began the demolition process for Charlotte and found our contractor and began talking to the owner of one of the properties next door, a business owner on Albany Avenue, who's very interested in purchasing the property. We released our request for proposals for 196 Homestead Avenue. The proposals are due July 28th, and we'll be able to select a purchaser at that point. And we began the acquisition of, we were hoping 15 to 20 more properties, but it's going to be 11.
11.
And now in July, on the 19th, our new executive director will join the Hartford Land Bank. We hope to complete the lot transfer and launch the Lot Next Door program. I spelled Charlotte wrong. We will close on Charlotte, Earl, Edgewood, and the Garden Street properties. We will select a developer for 196 Homestead, and we will begin the renovation of 78 Martin Street and hopefully get to 20% completion by the end of the month. All of our properties have been dealt with. The results that we're hoping to see from by the end of the year on this pilot 1 round is that 4 buildings will have been sold to small minority contractors who are renovating and creating 11 homes. 1 badly blighted property will have been demolished and the lot will be sold to an adjacent owner. 1 historic single-family home will be renovated and reoccupied. A responsible developer will be selected and financing will be secured for a 6-family apartment building on a prominent avenue. And we're also hoping that the Hartford Land Bank becomes the official land bank authority as per statute PA 1975. Pilot round 2, which involves these 11 properties in the Lot Next Door program. We hope to accomplish through that program the quick disposition of vacant lots to adjacent property owners. And we hope to give owner occupants the first right of refusal, and that any unsold lots may be developed by partner organizations such as NINA, SINA, Habitat for Humanity, or other 1 to 4 family home developers. And then the next steps that we've been talking with the city about are the creation of an ordinance to formally adopt the Hartford Land Bank as the legal land bank authority under Public Act 1975 of the Connecticut General Assembly. We want to develop a formal MOU between the city and the land bank for the future dispositions, and really understand and get a clear agreement between the 2 entities as to performance, reporting requirements, etc. Thank you.
Good.
Great. Mr. Matthews, do you need to add anything to this?
No, I'm here to support.
I do believe your chair of your land bank was here, Mr. Colon.
Hi, thank you. I would like to thank Carrie for this extraordinarily productive period of time that we've had in the land bank these last few months. We've seen a lot of accomplished, and so really with a sense of regret, we're going to say goodbye to Ms. Shale, though she's not leaving the city, and certainly she will still continue to be part of our community. And we are welcoming a new land bank director, as Carrie indicated, on July 19th. Arunan Arulampalam will become the new executive director of the Hartford Land Bank. And we're looking forward to continuing this stretch of very productive work that we've begun since Carrie took over.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Colon. Ms. Shea, I've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
No, please.
Great. So you said the land bank is renovating and developing a property on their own,
Yes.
And that was 78 Martin Street?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have an estimated cost for the renovation?
We don't yet. You know, similar properties that I've been involved with, and I've been talking to NINA and actually Aaron Gill, who's on the call also lately, about price per square foot costs. And I think it'll be somewhere in the ballpark of $115 to $125 a square foot all in.
Okay. I mean, I'm just a rough guesstimate. I'm not holding you to
Yeah.
those numbers at all. So is that portion of the 5 million that was funded by the state going to be used toward the renovation?
Yes, it will be.
Okay. And so you use a portion of those monies also towards the demolition of Magnolia Street.
Yes, the way the state money budget is 4.5 million of the 5 million must be used exclusively for program expenses, and 500,000 is for admin costs.
And how much for admin?
500,000.
500,000, I'm sorry.
And the contract runs until 2024. So they've got 3 more years on the contract.
Okay. Oh, to use that 4.5 million.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And now you said the other 4 of the properties, if I remember, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes. 4 of the properties are going to be sold to developers. Now, I'm trying to understand the concept. So when did the Hartford minority developers bid and buy this property? Do they turn it back around and sell it to Hartford residents? Are these residents going to be pretty much owner occupied?
Yeah, this is a good question. And I think really gets to the heart of the matter. One thing that I learned since coming on this job is that these are really tough properties, and developers can't even make these properties work. Essentially, the only people who can make these properties work, because the margins are so thin, are builders themselves. You know, a guy, a truck, a group of workers. These aren't, I'm an affordable housing developer, and I hire a general contractor to do work. These guys are the contractors themselves, and they're buying these buildings, and they're working on these, you know, their intention is to renovate these buildings with their own crews, with their own labor. And then 2 of the properties will be sold to owner occupants, and 2 of them are going to be held by these builders as rental units, which they will manage themselves. And both of those builders actually own and manage properties already.
And which of the 2 are going to be owner occupied?
Oh, my memory is so bad after a long weekend. It's like
That's
someone
okay.
pressed erase.
You can send that to us.
I know that the 61 Charlotte Street will be an owner occupied property, and it's really well suited for it. There's an owner duplex on the top 2 floors. It's just going to be beautiful when it's renovated. And then Edgewood, 128 Edgewood is also going to be sold as an owner occupied property. Garden Street and Earl are both, you know, they're 1 and 2 bedroom rentals, 3 family houses. An owner occupant, if they ever come up for sale, which, you know, the intention right now of the builders who are renovating them is to hold them in their portfolio, but they're not really suitable properties as owner occupant. I mean, owner occupant properties, because of the 3 units and the small size of the units.
But they're both being bid on or owned by, you said, minority contractors?
Yeah, so far, everybody who has come to even look at any of our properties have been people of color. It's very heartening to see how many small minority contractors who are out there in Hartford who know how to do this work, and are really anxious to do it. And I only wish we had more buildings to sell them, quite honestly.
So are you financing, is the land bank financing these properties? With the
No, we are
$4.5
not.
million?
No, we are not.
So they're getting private financing?
Yes. And the estimated rehab costs that we've seen from these builders is, you know, in the 140 to 185 range. But that, of course, doesn't include the their own labor, the value of their own labor.
No. Okay. Okay. Is there any other question away from myself? I apologize to my committee members. If you raise your hands, wave at me so I can see who has any questions. Up there we go. Councilman Sanchez.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not, you know, I had a hard time listening to the whole presentation, but what I did hear is a great presentation. We had a freak storm just go by, and internet was very troublesome. My questions are, and most of them has been asked, but as far as the contractor slash developer, are they Hartford based, and has that been vetted?
All of them are builders who primarily work in Hartford. 3 of them are from the region. 1 of them is from New York, Long Island.
Okay, so when they do start the project, are they going to be hiring workers from Hartford? You know, have they been vetted?
Yeah, my understanding, and this is just in conversations with them. So whenever we show a building, I actually go and I open the building. So I have the opportunity to meet every single person who comes to look at the building, and, you know, I chat with them. We do not currently ask on our application, you know, the builders to specify, you know, the names and addresses and so forth of their workers. Quite often on government jobs that is done, but we haven't done that. We're, you know, selling these properties, and because we're not subsidizing, you know, we kind of walk a fine line as to how much we want this to look like a government program, which it's not, you know, government subsidized program, which it's not. But for the most part, from what I can see, and in my conversations with the builders, they use almost exclusively local people, the trades and the unskilled workers.
And my next question, as far as the property that's getting demolished, that's sold to the neighbor, what are they going to use that lot for? Are they going to develop a multi-family home there, or is it going to turn into a parking lot? What's the use for that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you broke up a little bit, the beginning of that question. What are you, which?
So there's one building that's going to be demolished, you said.
Oh, the building that's going to be demolished. Yes. So that is a very, very narrow lot, so narrow that when the building was coming down today, it actually sort of grazed the neighbor next door. So we're going to have to smooth that out. But the intention, the expressed intention, and, you know, I want to be clear, we have made no commitment to selling this property to either one of the neighbors yet. There is a neighbor who's very interested. She owns a business on Albany Avenue. This property is adjacent to her Albany Avenue property, and she would like to use it as a driveway so that people can come off Albany Avenue through a church parking lot. She's had conversations with the church, and then through this property onto Charlotte and back onto Albany Avenue, so as to avoid people who need to go to her restaurant to have to go I guess Downs is, it's not Sterling, but, and then Homestead, and then up Charlotte. So she's trying to reduce the traffic flow on Charlotte. She's had a preliminary conversation with planning and zoning, but you know, with the new zoning, all of this stuff is a lot trickier.
Thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome, sir. Any other questions? Councilman Gale?
Thank you. I'm just wondering what are the purchase prices on the 4 that have been sold?
Oh, you're really testing my memory now. Okay.
Range is fine.
Yeah. So Charlotte and Earl appraised at $65,000 each. And I believe we accepted 65 for one and 78 for the other. Garden Street, 471 Garden, that we listed it at 50,000, and the winning bid was 85,000. And Edgewood, I think we kind of optimistically listed that at 50,000, and the bid we accepted was 15,000. Now, I want to be very clear that this is not a high, we do not look at the highest bid solely. Our job is really to get to mitigate blight and get these properties back into commerce. So we ask a lot of questions about the technical and financial capacity of the bidder to do the project, because that's what's really important to us, is making sure that the project gets across the finish line. Some of these properties, as a matter of fact, several of these properties had clearly been purchased by people who thought they could, you know, renovate them and weren't able to make it to the finish line and ended up losing the properties through tax foreclosure. So we don't want to see that repeated. So the bid price is important, but what's most important is the technical and financial capacity, the intended use of the property, and the purchaser. You know, we're very interested in small minority businesses and local people, and so that's sort of how we evaluate the bids.
And am I correct that all the money that you then take in as these purchase prices just goes back into your fund to be used by the land bank?
It does. I mean, we spend a lot of money on these buildings. For example, 59 Magnolia, by the time we get done, we probably will have spent over $60,000, $70,000 getting the building down. And we'll end up selling that property just for a couple $1,000s. So, you know, demolitions are not really where we want to go. They're very, very costly, and they don't reap big rewards. And then the properties that we have gotten the good prices on, you know, all of those properties we had cleaned out. We paid for appraisals. You know, there are a lot of expenses. You know, we're mowing them, we're shoveling the snow. There are a lot of expenses incurred. So, you know, we do net on those buildings. The 128 Edgewood, we probably spent $25,000 cleaning it out, and probably just in monthly maintenance, another $4,000 or $5,000, and we'll only get 15 from it. So you win some, you lose some. It'll be interesting to see how the numbers work at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Madam Chair. So I have two more questions, though. The purchaser from New York, do they own other properties here in Hartford? Are there landlords that we've been having issues with in the past? Do you know?
They own some multifamily buildings. I had been in one of them. It seemed in very good condition. I've seen a couple of their smaller buildings, 2 and 3 families. Their business model has basically, they do a lot of work in Hartford, almost exclusively in Hartford. And it's a father-son team. And they are the ones on the smaller properties. They buy them, renovate them, and then sell them to owner occupants. And the city, we got 2 thumbs up from the city staff about them. When they first started talking to us, we checked in with city staff about them, and they said they were some of the best builders they worked with.
And then my second question, you just mentioned about the cost of demolition. Wouldn't be a better course to take if we know that the property needs demolition? Is it possible to sell the property as a whole and let the purchaser deal with the demolition?
You know, if that's possible, absolutely. No one expressed any interest in this particular building, but this particular building not only was problematic just because of the condition, it was also problematic because it was on a very small lot that when we had to do the historical analysis of the property for the State Historic Preservation Office before they would allow us to demolish the building, we saw that it actually had been part of the Albany Avenue property next to it originally. And at some point, after 1920, it had been subdivided. So it had about 5 feet in the backyard, maybe 5 feet on either side of the property, no driveway, no parking, and then probably a 20-foot front yard. So originally we intended to try and renovate it, and we had been warned by the historic preservation people that they weren't going to let us take it down, that taking it down would be a issue. But when when we brought the engineer in, he fell through the floor up to his knee, and the city immediately taped it off and put an unsafe building thing on it, and we had to take it down.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Rossetti.
Thank you, Chairperson Surgeon. Carrie or Ms. Shea, this may be a crazy question, but we absolutely make sure that no one ever owes taxes or has a bad tax history with us, correct?
That's one of the questions that we ask on the application. We have about 15 questions we ask about have you done business with the city before? Have you lost a building? Do you have any outstanding blight liens? Do you have any outstanding liens? So we have all of these questions.
Okay. But ask and verifying are 2 different things. How do we verify that that's so?
That's a really good question. And we haven't come up with a process or hired anybody or anything. We also haven't closed on any of these properties either. So that might be one final check we want to do before we head into the closing.
I would highly recommend through you, Chairwoman Surgeon, that there is some type of way to make sure that that is not only included, a way to verify whether it's checking through our own developmental services, whether there's a staff person, but you're new in the process. And I think this is an important aspect. And also not just that they're presently up to date, that there's not any, history of, bad work. That's a terrible way to word it. But I don't think the land bank wants to be known, nor do we want the land bank to be known as someone that is developing properties. I think what everybody knows what I'm trying to say. So there really needs to be a way to check this. And I'm sure Aaron and others can really help you with that process, but I'm not comfortable unless saying that it's on a form. I know what forms are like, but also verifying it is really important. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am. You know, I'm going to continue in your light, Councilman Rossetti. Couple of things also is these contractors, you know, are they registered with Hartford as Hartford business contractors? That's another area would love to see the land bank check to make sure they're Hartford businesses or Hartford contractors. You know, when taking office and reading about the land bank and your mission, you know, basically, it was basically to get some of these properties back on the city rolls, but also create, owner occupied properties. So, you know, we gave you 7 properties, you know, 2, I mean, one you had to demolish. We're down to 6, and only 2 are going to be owner occupied. So as you speak with your board chair is here, you know, one of the things I would like to see, and I think a lot of the residents would like to see, is the owner occupancy, of these, you know, for these properties. One of the council persons suggests maybe you should check with Mr. Phillips, and I guess Mr. Rayner, you know, and the assessor's office is on, who can also give you some information regarding the contractors. But that's a really point I would love to get across to the land bank and their members regarding that.
May I address that?
Yes, sir.
This is Melvin Colon again, the chair of the land bank, and I share with you the desire that all of these properties that can be made into homeownership opportunities be made into homeownership opportunities, and that's one of the things we do at SINA. We have several goals that we want to accomplish through the land bank. The number 1 goal is, of course, to deal with blight in the city. We also want to promote homeownership. We want to provide opportunities to local contractors. We want to provide opportunities to minority contractors. I've just listed off 4 goals that we wanted to accomplish with the land bank. And we can't always accomplish all 4 goals with every project, with every property. Sometimes those goals may compete with each other. We are looking for a way right now economically to convert to create a path to home ownership that we can enforce in the conveyance of these properties. And hopefully when Arunan comes on board, we'll find a way to do that. Right now, we've been researching land banks throughout the country to figure out how they've been able to do that. But right now, the margins are so slim that it's sometimes we just have to allow developers to convert these to rental properties. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Colon. So one of the questions you can research for me also is, I thought some of that $4.5 million could be used for programming. Could some of that money be, especially if the margin is so small and going off of private financing with large interest, you know, well, the interest rates are pretty small now. How do we help a property owner who is going to, be owner occupying these properties? How do we help them? Are they working with our housing department as first-time home buyers? Have you connected those, what the city has to help people to become first-time home buyers? Have we connected those 2 dots as yet?
You know, I don't think we have. I don't think we require that those people who buy the properties with the intention of either occupying it themselves or selling it, that we require the buyers to take a home ownership class, and that will be something that will become a requirement. I think that all buyers need to go into the experience with an awareness of the risks involved. Absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion.
Oh, no, thank you.
But to your point, Councilwoman, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
All first-time home buyers would be subject to receiving down payment assistance if they qualify up to $40,000. So we do have programs in the city with folks who may acquire properties through the land bank might be able to come to, as you alluded to, the Department of Housing and get some assistance if in fact they qualify. So that is always open to any city resident. That certainly can happen. And as was stated earlier, all these processes we're putting in place are kind of new, but as we pull them all together, we'll all begin to connect the dots between the city and the land bank, and you'll see much more of that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. I do want to send this a pilot program, and I do understand that, this is something we're all learning about. So this is a really good conversations we're having so that the residents can understand how the land bank works and answer some of those questions that they have regarding the land bank. I just got a text from someone, Ms. Shea, if you don't mind helping me out here. Or Mr. Cologne, regarding the board of directors. One of the issues, one of the residents, you have in your bylaws regarding conflict of interest on your board. You have people who does lending. How do you finance, how do you approve a purchase with a person also getting finance from one of your board of directors? How does that work?
The situation has come up already twice, and in both cases, the board member with the conflict of interest disclosed the conflict of interest and did not participate in the discussion.
Okay. So those are the issues I think some of the residents are really looking at and saying, basically, so your answer is that they are not voting on that piece of property that they're also financing.
That's correct. They're disclosing their connection to the developer who has put a bid on the property, and also they are recusing themselves from the conversation, and they're not voting, nor are they voting on that particular property.
So again, through you, Mr. Cologne, are you guys have any sort of relationship with any of the private banks that you can also offer the potential buyer that could also seek financing?
I'm going to say no, and I will, that is something to be worked on, but I will also look to Carrie to make sure that I'm giving you the correct answer.
Yeah, we did not get involved with the financing. We asked for proof of financing from the potential purchasers, but we're not looking to help them put together their deals. I think that what we wanted to do in this pilot program was to sort of test the waters and say, if these properties were made available to the public for purchase, could they be sold? Quite honestly, the first time I looked at these properties, I thought to myself, oh my God, what were Laura and Aaron thinking? I was, it was sort of a gloomy day, and I was going from property to property, and I thought, this is really going to be a problem. We tried to keep it as simple as possible in the beginning to see sort of what will the market bear, who's out there, can we achieve these goals that Melvin just really clearly enunciated without having to load on a whole bunch of programs and relationships and subsidies and everything, because all that stuff slows everything down. And I certainly felt a sense of urgency, and after my conversations with city staff and the mayor and so forth about, the need to really get this program up and running. So I didn't want to do anything that was going to sort of cause a drag on it. I think going forward, as the organization gets better and better at sort of moving properties, I think then we might want to, they may want to see, who's being left out, or who, but for, some assistance with financing or some assistance with a down payment, you know, could actually participate. But you know, I'm a longtime affordable housing developer, and my specialty is 1 to 4 family houses. And what I have found is the less encumbered the programs, the properties are, the faster you can kind of move them along. And I felt that the community really wanted to see some action. And so, you know, this was the path I pursued, but it's not in stone. And I think that probably the folks at the land bank are going to be more open than I was to you know, to some of those enhanced programs and relationships.
Thank you, Michelle. No, this is all new to all of us, and I thank you so very much for stepping in when Laura moved home. So I thank you very much for stepping in, and I thank the board members, you know, for getting a program up and going. I know there's a lot more things to be done. I do believe there is no understanding between the land bank and the city of Zet that is being developed currently. So for me, you know, this was the first time around. It was our first rodeo. I think we all learned tons of stuff on how the program works. And so I really think the idea of the next door lot program, I wish I had one beside my home. I certainly would be bidding on it because I think it's a great idea, especially in the city of Hartford, especially in North Hartford, where I know predominantly all the 11 properties are located. Parking is a valuable thing, extremely valuable. And so, you know, having a little extra land and the houses are so close to each other that I think it's a great idea. I hope that you would make these 11 property prices reasonable, that the property owners, you know, can afford to buy these properties, especially as you said, the merchant who would like to buy it to, you know, get a new way of getting into her business. I think that's a great idea. But I do hope most people of the 11 properties are sold to property owners nearby, you know, that can buy it. My only other thing is I'm just wondering is, you know, not all of us has the ready income to go out and financing, even if it's $5,000 or $10,000. Have you guys thought of anything on how to help the next door property owners, if they're interested, how they can reach out and get some financing to buy these lots?
We really haven't discussed numbers yet. I'm hoping that it's really a very almost nominal cost. We don't want to do anything that's going to depress property values. I'm 100% against any, you know, dollar lot program or anything like that. I don't think that we should let people think for a moment that property in Hartford is throwaway property and has no value. Our property has value. Our neighborhoods have value. So I don't, but I also am very realistic about the ability of folks to, you know, come up with, you know, cash at closing and amounts that might be market value. We haven't had any of the lots appraised. I think I won't be around, but my suggestion to the new executive director will be that he have a couple of these lots appraised, see what the numbers come in at, and then begin the conversation with the board and the city from there. Maybe have a couple conversations with, you know, some of the potential purchasers too, to get a feel for what their thinking and abilities are.
Just one last task I may ask you for, Michelle, before we leave. Could you just send us an update on all the 7 properties? I know it was in your presentation, the ones were demolished, the ones were sold, you know, the ones were owner occupied, who developers are for the ones who are, who the contractors are. If you could send us that information, I would appreciate it.
Certainly.
That'd be great. Thank you so very much. Do I see any other hands? I think I'm finished with my request. Oh, Councilman Sanchez.
Yes, I have one more question, and then I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
So my question is marketing and outreach. What marketing is in place to, as far as outreach is concerned, to our Hartford residents to let them know that this is
Are
available?
you walking?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm bouncing around. I'm trying to make sure I keep that internet available here.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So as far as marketing and outreach, what's in place?
And I have to apologize. I did a little walking too. I'm home alone, and the mailman was at my door delivering a package. So forgive me for that. I wasn't just going to the refrigerator.
Oh, we're fine.
Marketing. So we have a communications consultant, Hello Consulting, who works with us. And we maintain a mailing list of everyone who actually comes onto the website of the land bank. We have a Facebook page, we have Instagram. We reach out to the Minority Business Construction Council. We market through Lisk Enterprise. We've, for certain things, certain vendor contracts and so forth, we publish in local newspapers. And I'm sorry, I actually put together a list for the board members recently, or when I first started, on how we were going to market these properties, because there was a lot of concern about that. We did a press release, but I can get you sort of the memo that I wrote to them about how we were going to market.
Thank you for that. And if you could share that with the entire council as well. And I would like to thank everyone for their hard, diligent work. I know this is tough. I know it's new. It's a pilot program. And I definitely understand that we need to get this, get the ball rolling. So with that said, and it's important to get this ball rolling. And then obviously, I see the need of more improvement, but again, as a pilot, we're in the learning stages, right? So I'd like to make a motion to send this to council with a favorable recommendation. And also I would like to see if a report can be sent out to the entire city council as to what are the next steps afterwards and what processes are still available, and also what programs are available so that we can assist Hartford residents to purchase these properties, and being that they're living in Hartford, and I would imagine that they're going to stay living in Hartford. So with that is my motion.
I'd like to second the motion.
Great, thank you, for this. Wait a second, Ms. Howard. So the motion is properly second for discussion. Ms. Howard.
Sure. I think we should also just raise to council specific to this resolution. This did require an 8-24 review by Planning and Zoning. It did go to Planning and Zoning at their last meeting. They did, I'm not sure if you guys have a copy of that, but they did approve the transfer of the 11 city-owned properties with 2 following conditions, if you'd like me to read those out.
Yes, please.
One was that each property shall be redeveloped in accordance with the City of Hartford zoning regulations and Historic Preservation Commission ordinance. And 2, which is also tied to your resolution already, that the Hartford Land Bank establish clear guidelines for its lot next door program and work with the Planning and Zoning and Historic Preservation Commission to address potential zoning conflicts in order to ease the process for future buyers, or, this is the piece in the resolution, if no such buyer materializes, returning the properties to productive use through development of housing. I should just make it very clear that in the resolution, the one term that is tied to the transfer of these 11 lots is that if the land bank cannot find an adjacent property owner to purchase these lots, that the land bank will work with either NINA, SINA, Habitat, a local nonprofit housing developer in order to promote infill development, or the land bank themselves can actually do the infill development. Just make that very clear to everyone.
So through you, Councilman Sanchez, can I amend your motion on the floor?
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. To include those conditions from the Planning and Zoning Commission, includes those conditions in the favorable recommendation to the council. Also, including the Planning and Zoning condition to be added if they are not met.
Yes, ma'am.
Can somebody second?
And I'll second that. Council President will second that.
Thank you, Council President. Any comments, questions? Don't see any hands raised as I go through this. So how say the members of the committee?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any nays? Any abstentions?
Aye.
You're abstaining, Councilman?
No, I'm sorry. I have a delay in my internet. I apologize.
Oh, okay. I thought the council president was abstaining.
No.
That's okay, Wally. It's the weather. The weather is messing up our internet today. Okay, so the high as it, and so the resolution will be sent favorably back to the council favorably with the conditions that the planning and zoning commissions have laid out. And also a report from the land bank stipulating all the, I can't remember all the issues Councilman Sanchez had laid out. Councilman Sanchez, could you repeat those reports that you were looking for?
Yes, with a report to the whole entire city council that we received the following, I can't remember word for word, but the following processes that will take place and improvements to this pilot program.
Okay, so so with the condition of the report, working with development services regarding the MOU with the land bank in the city of Hartford. So that is the resolution on the floor, and we have a favorably vote to send it back to the council. So then we want to thank, I really want to thank the land bank chair, Mr. Colon, for visiting with us. And I want to thank Ms. Shea for all her dedication in getting us through this temporary time. I want to thank her for her hard work. And I know this was a pilot program and we have all learned a lot, and want to thank you for your leadership to getting us to this point, and looking forward to working with the new director.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I believe Mr. Colon had his hand raised.
I did not see that. Mr. Colon, please.
No, I thought I was clapping. I apologize. Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. Sorry about that.
Okay, Mr. Colon, well, thank you for clapping. I want to thank you very much for joining us, because I think you and Ms. Shea has answered a lot of the questions, that myself as a member of the committee and as a council person and residents out there. And I think when you and the city and development services work on the memorandum of understanding, all those issues from taxes to all the issues working with the tax collector to make sure that these developers are also licensed and with business in the city of Hartford, I'm sure all those will be put on the table and in the memorandum of understanding. So thank you very much for your patience in working with us. Okay, second item on the agenda, and I want to thank our visitors for bearing with us. The second item on the agenda is a resolution from Mayor Bronin that would authorize the sale of a blighted property at 213-215 Lawrence Street to Mr. Aaron Gill of Wolverine Properties, LLC. As you may know, Mr. Gill is a committed local resident and developer and the chair of Frog Hollow Neighborhood NRZ. The item was on the agenda at our June 14th meeting and went to a public hearing on June 21st. And the item was also referred to a planning and zoning commission. So we should be getting a report on this item also. So Mr. Matthews, would the city would like to educate us on this resolution?
Yeah, this presentation was made by William Diaz, one of senior economic development specialist. William, are you on?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
Not you, William.
Yes,
William has a
welcome.
beard, as you will see.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the, we're trying to seek approval to sell a city-owned parcel at 215 Lawrence Street to Wolverine Property, LLC. Previously, this particular parcel was identified as a blighted property by the city of Hartford. Mr. Aaron Gill of Wolverine Property, LLC had interest in acquiring the blighted property, and in June 2020, he petitioned for appointment of receiver to the courts. On August 20th of 2020, Mr. Gill was granted appointment of receiver by the Connecticut Superior Court. And I do want to point out that the city of Hartford was heavily involved with supporting receivership as a way to expedite remediating blighted properties. So as a new law, and this being the first court case where the receivership has been granted, we face several challenges with the law, and as blight conditions continue to materialize on the existing property. So there was a need to put this property in the hands of the court-appointed receiver as soon as possible. Therefore, the city foreclosed on the blight and tax liens and took possession of this parcel back in April.
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him. I believe me, I understand it is like raining
And has the financial capacity to complete this renovation. He's investing over $450,000 into this 3-family structure with the intent of occupying one of the units. We did receive quite a few letters of support from members of the Frog Hollow community on behalf of Mr. Gill, expressing their support of this project while acknowledging Mr. Gill's dedication to the neighborhood. Mr. Aaron Gill, he's with us today online, so offer him the opportunity to briefly summarize his project.
Before he does that, Mr. Gill, can I ask you to define what is a receivership? Well, that's a new terminology to me.
I would be happy to do my best. I will preface this with I am not an attorney, but receivership is, as Ms. Howard pointed out, one of the laws that was pushed forward by the city of Hartford to get passed via the state as one more tool in the toolbox, if you will, for ways that we as members of the city of Hartford can begin to work on more of these blighted and vacant buildings. With that in mind, 213 Lawrence is something that is a building that I specifically have been looking at and trying to figure out how to do something with it for years, and brainstorming with folks that understand this law better than I did. It seemed that I was a very good candidate for receivership. Receivership in general has some pretty specific definitions as to which buildings qualify. And then to become a receiver, there are some very specific definitions as to how one can qualify to be a receiver. The biggest thing.
Can I just stop you for 1 second? I think we have Attorney Velasco on our committee. Attorney Velasco?
Took me a moment to unmute.
That's okay.
So yes, Madam Chair, what's your question?
Sir, I'm just trying to get an understanding of the city understanding of this receivership.
Receiverships are they're connected with a court matter where the court will appoint somebody to preserve and protect the property that's the subject of the litigation. So oftentimes, for instance, you would see a receivership in a situation where utilities are not being paid, MDC is not being paid, and it's involving a property that might be a rental property, and they will ask for the appointment of a receiver to oversee the property, take away the rights of the owner of the property to receive the rents, and then the receiver would collect rents and so forth for the benefit of the utility company. So the same type of situation here. Again, the receiver is an agent of the court, is the nature of the appointment.
So basically, the rights of the property owner is taken away.
Yes, they are severed from managing the property themselves. The receiver then becomes the party that manages the property.
But the property owner is still the owner of the property?
Well, this was in a foreclosure action, so the city was pursuing the property. And so what I would expect happened here, and I wasn't involved in this case, is if the city had brought the foreclosure action and was concerned about the property deteriorating further, they asked the court for the appointment of a receiver to stop the destruction and waste of the property, and then likely, and again, I'm not involved with this litigation, likely continued to foreclosure so that the city would have acquired title. And then if what happened here would be the city then may have transferred this property to Mr. Gill, who had been appointed under the court as a receiver. That's what I suspect is what happened here.
That's exactly.
I can add a little clarification to that,
Please.
if I may, Chair.
Yes, sir.
The receivership law that was put forth in Connecticut, and for what it's worth, my understanding is I'm the first person that has tried this law. I'm also the first person in the state that has been appointed receiver of a property. What makes the receivership law here in Connecticut slightly unique to what Attorney Vassalaro was discussing was that this is specifically designed for blighted or vacant buildings. So the first stipulation in the bill that we have in the state of Connecticut is that the building has not been legally occupied for at least 12 months immediately preceding the date of filing for a petition. So our receivership law, if you will, is intended specifically for folks that live within roughly 1,000 lineal feet of a property to be able to have the legal authority to then enter the property and begin to repair the building, if you will. So instead of in previous times where we've waited for the foreclosure process, something I think we're all familiar with, it is a long and drawn out process. Receivership allowed me the legal authority to enter the property, clean it up, further secure it, and begin pre-development stuff for that property. With receivership, the receiver is required to submit to the court documents for the plan of the renovation of the building. Also, how those renovations will be financed. And then there's a variety of other stipulations that one must meet to be the receiver as well. Like I said, owning property or living within 1,000 lineal feet, having experience doing this before, having the financial wherewithal, and then the judge who sets the receivership also can determine then how often one has to come back to the court to share with them progress or updates, financial reports, that type of thing. From there, how the receiver is protected, if you will, is the receiver has the legal authority or legal ability to then file liens on that property for costs and time incurred. So the receivership statute states specifically, you keep track of your hours, you keep track of your expenditures, and those liens can be applied to the property. Those liens are second only to municipal liens. So only City of Hartford liens would supersede my as the receiver liens, and then the receiver's liens supersede anything beyond that, whether it's a mortgage or other utilities, things like that.
Okay. Just a question, Mr. Diaz. How long was the property been blighted?
So Mr. Diaz has moved into my office, so so I'll let him answer. How long? I'm sorry. Can you repeat the
I
question?
was just
too?
going to asking, how long has this property been, not occupied and it's been on our blighted list?
So we just took possession of the property. So in the city inventory, I think we took it in end of April. Law date, I believe, was the end of April 21. I believe the property itself has been in blighted condition for multiple years before then. That has been quite a problem for the neighborhood.
Mr. Gale, do you know how long the property has been sitting there being blighted over the years?
I moved into the neighborhood in 2013. It's been blighted since prior to us moving into Frog Hollow. But no one has been able to give me a definite answer as to when the building was last occupied.
I'm sorry. Oh. So was there any liens, any blighted liens filed on the property? Mr. Gill? I mean, Mr. Diaz, I apologize.
Yes, there were tax liens and blight liens when the city foreclosed on the property.
What was that, Erin?
Yes, there were blight liens and there were tax liens on the property at the time of foreclosure. Yeah.
And I apologize, my computer froze after I was done talking.
I have it here. There were about $107,000 worth of blight liens, and there was an additional $7,800 in tax liens.
The only reason I'm asking these questions because we have had community residents who have questioned why the city did not foreclose on this instead of going to the receivership sort of way, since Mr. Gill was the receiver for the property and was taking care of it for several years.
So if I may, Mr. Gill did not actually get appointed the receivership until what was mid-2020, August 2020, and so the receivership. So part of the thing here is the receivership bill, a law allows for other entities, another tool in the toolbox, to come in to work with blighted conditions and blighted properties, and so that is what Mr. Gill did and worked through the court-appointed process. This receivership bill was new. Just for clarification, when we advocated as a city for the creation of the Land Bank Authority, the receivership bill went through the state process as well at the same time. So it was kind of a dual package to really figure out a way that we can combat blight within our cities. And so what happened is Mr. Gill was the first person in the state of Connecticut to actually try going through this process under that new receivership and under that. And frankly, what happened was there were some challenges with the receivership and with the condition of the property that just continued to deteriorate. The decision internally was the best way that we can get this property remediated and addressed quickly is if the city did continue its foreclosure action to take title to the property. What makes this so different is that Mr. Gill was the first appointed receiver under the state statute. He demonstrated to the courts that he was capable and a viable developer of the property. And in an effort to take the position where we felt that addressing the condition of the blighted property took priority and precedence over everything, the city moved forward in that action in order to make that happen as fast as possible.
Thank you for explaining that, Erin. We're all learning so much today between the land bank and now the receivership. Any questions from the council members? Do I see any hands up? Yes, Councilman LeBron.
Yes, thank you. And this has been very informative as always, and through you, Madam Chair. I guess the question may be for Erin and Mr. Diaz. So if I heard correctly, and it was going in and out, that at the time of the receivership, Mr. Gill, we were first learning, and it was at the same time as the land bank. So I had a community member reach out to me, as Councilwoman Surges suggested, people reach out to us. What's the difference between, like, if you could make the clear distinction as to why, because we just heard a land bank presentation, as to why receivership and not land bank?
So I think in this particular scenario, at the time that the city started working with Mr. Gill and working through the receivership process, the land bank wasn't in a position and had not taken on any property at the time. And so I think that's a clear answer in this particular process. Mr. Gill has already got his financing in order. He's already gone through that. He's demonstrated as a developer that he can do this. We can move it relatively quickly. And so the city took the position to retain the property and move towards this development, again, with the intention of addressing blight as fast as possible.
I agree. So as a follow-up question, through you, Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so moving forward, it seems that now that we do have the land bank in place and now that we are getting Mr. Rumpelum to come in here, the receivership possibilities for future residents, future interested residents is probably mitigated, right? Because or am I off on that process? Like, or is Mr. Rumpelum going to figure that policy and procedure out?
So I'll take a stab at answering this one quickly. So the receivership law is, you got to look at it as another tool in a toolbox, right? And so, you know, right now, the way it works with blighted properties is if we accrue blight liens on property, and eventually over time, the city will take an action to try to foreclose on those blight liens. And that's an active goal of the Department of Development Services right now, right? And if there's somebody else, though, that can intervene and not be the city, then if it's an adjacent property owner or someone in the area that can bring their own dollars and become a receiver and to address the blighted condition, whichever path we can take that supports the redevelopment and the rehab of a property, we can still take. So,
yeah, I said another way simply is not all properties need to go through the land bank. There may be a small minority business developer, a small female business developer who may contact the city and say, I'm interested in this piece of property and I want to develop this piece of property. That may be an opportunity that we may seize upon to try to do business with a small minority or small female developer. That could certainly happen. So we don't want to suggest at all that every property that is blighted will go automatically to the land bank. It may not. It may be Habitat, it may be the Sina, it may be the Nina, it may be the number of other developers in the area. But our goal is to try to send as many as possible. And you see coming forward, we're going to try to give the land bank maybe 30 properties as a goal. That will be something we're looking at, but it may not always, Councilman, be the land bank. It may be others. And that works for us too, because we do want to build capacity. We want to build capacity with our developers. We want to build capacity that people know they can do business in the city, no matter who they may be, the land bank or a small developer.
Thank you both for the very comprehensive answer. That was very detailed. I appreciate it. And like I had a million questions following up, but they all were answered. Thank you both.
Oh, I know. So, Mr. Matthews, can I just really add to that question where one of the things I heard Ms. Howard say was that, Mr. Gill, when he did have the receivership, he was able to go out and get his financing. And so that is I wouldn't say easier, but that was a quicker route to get that blighted property back on the tax roll instead of sending it to the land bank, which then had to have time to have bid on it. So am I correct in my thinking like that?
Well, I think, make sure I got my timing right. I think it's fair to say when we started working with Mr. Gill, the land bank was not operational. Mm-hmm. So we were looking for a number of different areas to move blighted properties, foreclosure. We're trying to because all we hear from community residents, as I'm sure you do, is we have too many blighted properties on our block. You got to clean them up, Matthews. I hear that over and over again. So I was pressing staff to find new and innovative ways to move blighted property. This was a blighted property. Mr. Gill had a reputation for really doing great work in that area. and we reached out to him because he was appointed by the court as a receiver. But keep in mind, at the end of the day, we still had to foreclose. And once the city foreclosed, then we enter in the relationship with him to find a way to let him develop the property. And that made sense to us, quite honestly, because of his involvement, because of the fact that he was maintaining the property. He was putting time and cost to maintain that property while this whole process was moving forward. It was the fair and right thing to do to enter in a contract with him.
I just want the community to understand, and even myself to understand, because I think there was a question, in the chat regarding what the cost is of buying the property from the city. But I think you clearly stated that he has put his time. He has started keeping the property clean up. If I remember hearing Ms. Shea talked about, sometimes 15, 20,000 that she had to pay. Not she, I apologize. The land bank had to pay, to clean this property up. So I would say, am I clear in saying, the time, the monies Mr. Gill had put into the property, basically, is that, I don't know what led to the decision of the sale price of $5,500.
Yeah, well, we picked a number, Madam Chair, that we thought was reasonable. Okay. Reasonable based on the fact that he had put time in, he had put cost in, he was committed, and it was the same thing that Carrie alluded to earlier. You want to find a developer who would take a blighted property down the field and score a touchdown, to use that kind of sports language. And we felt confident that this property had been blighted for a number of years. We now had a developer that was ready, willing, and able to put this property on the market and get this, not only bring it back to useful life, but to move in. I mean, this was, in my opinion, a home run. So we came up with a number that we thought was reasonable. Listen, I get that some folks may disagree, but we thought based on our objective analysis, it was a reasonable number, given all the money he had to borrow to put into the unit and bring it back to a taxable life. We thought that was reasonable.
Any questions from the Councilman Gale?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Two comments, probably more than questions. I don't think folks should lose sight of the fact that Mr. Gill in particular, and anybody who's taking advantage of or trying to take advantage of this receivership statute, is putting up their own money and taking a risk. We haven't gotten this from him, but he had to pay legal expenses. He had to get a lawyer and go to court and take advantage of, try to take advantage of the law. And this law, another thing that people shouldn't lose sight of, this law is really narrowly tailored. You have to live within 1,000 feet of the blighted property. This was Laura Settlemeyer, when she was our blight director, reaching around the country and coming up with a state statute that could potentially benefit cities like Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, where we have these issues. And so the idea of this receivership statute is that it's very narrowly tailored for the one of us, any one of us who's living in our home and we have a blighted property across the street or down the street. It's got to be 1,000 feet from us, and it's destroying our quality of life. And we decide, you know what, we got to do something about it. And what it allowed, and again, this is something I don't think folks should lose sight of, is it allowed someone to take control of the property very quickly and mow the lawn, clean it up so it's not an eyesore. Well, we know the city has this responsibility, but we also know the city's got a lot of responsibility and doesn't always get there when they can. This particular property, I took a quick look at the land records. while we've been chatting, and this property's had tax liens and blight liens that go back to 2014, 2015, 2016. So this has been a problem property for an extremely long time. Just thought it was worth noting the narrowness of the tool, as was expressed by Aaron Howard. Another tool in the toolbox, but it can only be used by a very limited number of people. And the fact that in this particular case, the individual had to risk his own funding. To me, this seems like this is quite a home run for everybody, where we're able to get some very quick movement instead of the city foreclosing, sitting on the property for a number of years, having the legal responsibility for the property, having to worry about mowing the lawn, shoveling the snow, as well as the legal liability. City was able to hopefully turn it over very quickly here. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Councilman Gale, I that's another tool in our toolbox. I totally understand that. And, the liens and the blighted liens and the property, I believe it or not, today, before the committee meeting, I decided I'm going to drive by the piece of property. So at least I can actually see, before I vote on something. I just wanted to actually see, and it was cleaned up. I was impressed. So thank you for pointing that out, Councilman Gale, that, I know this doesn't seem like a lot of monies to the community when you say you're selling a piece of property. But one thing you pointed out to me, Councilman Gale, is the time he's been taking even before he was receivership, in keeping the snow off the ground so people can walk. And also in conjunction with that, never thought about all the attorney's fees and everything else he put in before we got to this point. So thanks, Mr. Councilman Gale, for pointing that out to me. Any other questions before I keep talking? Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to make a statement, and I will follow with a motion.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I commend Mr. Aaron Gill for what he's been doing. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of heart to take over a blighted property on your own and care for it, only because you care for your neighborhood. If I'm not mistaken, and Director I. Charles or anyone else, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that it's also a risk. Although he was awarded receivership, I think it's a risk where he's putting in his effort, his money, and not only that, just his sweat equity. That the previous owner is able to come back, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the previous owner able to come back and say, thank you, Mr. Gill, for cleaning it all up, spending your money. I'm going to reimburse you with no interest. Now I'm taking over. So I think that's a risk, and he took that risk. As I mentioned in a previous meeting, Mr. Gill reminds me of my dad. I also like to commend, besides my dad, Mr. Mariano Cortez, who purchased property, fixed it up, and still stay living in the city of Hartford. They did business in the city of Hartford. They poured their sweat into the city of Hartford. And I commend Mr. Gill on that. I also like to thank Director I. Charles and your team, Aaron and Mr. Diaz, for all the efforts and explanation. I think it was a great explanation. I do have my version where you're taking a blighted property from a slumlord who don't care, who uses it for tax purposes and doesn't care about the neighborhood. And therefore we have this receivership, which more or less is not a shortcut, but it's a direct route to taking these properties and putting it back to use and putting back onto our grand list. So thank you everyone for that. And I'd like to make a motion that we send this to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
The motion has been properly second. Any comments, questions?
Councilwoman Surgeon, if I may.
Yes,
Just-
please.
Just so everyone is aware, the planning and zoning is hearing
Yes.
this item next week. Just so everyone is aware. So it does still have to be heard by planning and zoning. I believe the meeting is next Tuesday.
It's also referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yep.
So we will get a report back before our council meeting on the 12th, I think.
No.
No.
You won't. You will get it after that, and you probably, I don't know if you have to push this to the next meeting and then have it acted on by council at the August city council meeting.
Well, the unfortunate thing is, the planning or PDNH committee meets, our deadline for a council meeting is on the 12th. And so I was going to ask the council president and my colleagues if I could walk this report on for the December 12th council meeting, because we kind of always miss the deadline and we won't have another council meeting until August. So I hear there's a motion on the floor. It was properly in second. Except the commissions were not going to be meeting to vote on this by the 12th. Then I've got a question for our attorney, Mr. Falas. I cannot pronounce his name for the
Fasalo.
Fasalo, Attorney Fasalo.
Yes.
Okay, so if we would like to send this item back to the council for favorable for approval, but the Planning and Zoning Commission will not be able to meet until then. Should we adjust our favorable recommendation with the language also depends on the the Planning and Zoning Commission favorable or not favorable recommendation from that commission?
Subject to.
Subject to?
Yeah.
So subject to a favorable recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think would suffice.
I agree.
Okay. So Jimmy, we were going to amend your motion in the floor to subject to a favorable recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Agreed.
Okay, great. And we still have that second? Councilman Rossetti?
No, I'm just saying, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm definitely going to vote for this resolution because I drove by the property, and I took a look at it and I was fairly impressed. I'm also a member of my NRZ in Upper Albany and would have loved to have had an opportunity, where it's very costly. I'm just going to put this on the table. I paid to get my snow cleaned, and my next door neighbor is kind of an absentee landlord, and I'm always cleaning his sidewalk, so there's an extra $50 added to my snow bill, every time. So, Mr. Gill, I commend you for doing this because I know it's costly, and a lot of our residents may say that, well, we have liens over 100,000 and we're selling the property for 55,000, but we have to remember that people put their sweat, and this has been several winter and summer to keep this property up. So I am going to vote favorably, yes, on this resolution to be sent back to council favorably. So how does the rest of the council members vote on this?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Great. So the item has passed. It's going to be sent to the council with a favorable recommendation, subject to the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, favorable recommendation. Those are the two items we have had on our agenda. It's been a long 2 hours meeting. I want to thank everyone for their patience. And I want to thank everyone for the questions that were posed on the floor. I think any member of any community was listening to this committee meeting. I hope they would feel that each item was actually, we actually asked the appropriate questions so we can make a decision. So do a motion on the floor to.
Move adjournment.
I'm sorry?
Move adjournment.
I'm coming there, Mr. Matthews. I was trying to get someone to propose, not you, Mr. Matthews, you do not belong to our committee.
I thought I was in my old role. I'm sorry. I forgot myself.
Okay. Anyone has a motion on the floor to close our meeting? And
So move.
so great. Second. Great.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. I appreciate
Good
it.
job, all. Thank you. Bye, Aaron.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye.